Okay, everyone, I can see that everyone's here. And so welcome to the workshop. My name is David Lamb. For those of you who didn't see me yesterday, I thank you, Timur, for your message in the chat. And thank you for joining us today. I can see that all my speakers are here, all my facilitators are here. So let's get, as I think the expression is, this show on the road. So here we are. I hope everyone can see my screen. And we are in today's workshop, which is Farming and Food Production's Role in Building Resilient Rural Futures. Okay, I know many of you have been attending the workshop so far today. I hope there's been fruitful discussion. We're going to get people joining us as we go, but we're going to get things started because what are we here to discuss today? Let's just wait for my slides to load. Because what we're trying to look at is the kind of transformation that farming, food, and value-based chains can make to be successful in 2040. And what I've put there is a few images, and as many of you will be aware, some of these images are coming from the more food and farming basic projects in the Rural Inspiration Awards. And I get to do a little bit of a plug for that, a little bit of a reminder that we have the Rural Inspiration Awards ceremony coming up on Thursday, and you still have a little bit of time to vote by midnight tomorrow. So there's a few examples. You might recognize some of you in the breakout groups, one of the speakers who is in the left-hand side, but I'll come to that just very shortly. So what are we aiming to do today? Those of you that are attending workshops already today will recognize the collective conversation we're trying to have through this week. So 2 questions that we want to answer today. What are the key ideas that should be addressed in a vision for the future for resilient rural areas? And what are the step changes and actions needed to get us there? So this forms part of 2 workshops looking at resilience in many ways, but this specifically focusing on farming and food production and its contribution. So what are we going to do to get us to get to 2040? What's the idea? What's the key ideas that should be addressed that we will have in 2040? So here's how we're going to work it. And a little bit of just a reminder of the instructions. Keep your microphones off unless you're speaking. The meeting will be recorded. Rename yourself with name and organization if you haven't already done so, just so that we can tell who you are. Write in the chat, please be active, get involved, raise hand to speak, certainly at the open sessions, because what we're going to do is have a few keynote presentations and then the option to get involved and to ask questions and use headsets where possible. You'll just avoid the echo coming back through. So what we're going to be doing is doing an intro and some keynote presentations, and then we're going to break into 4 groups, which will discuss various topics and diverse aspects of the overall agenda for today. And then we'll come back together for feedback and conclusions. And remember how important it is to get involved so that your voice is heard. It's all about our rural this week. Okay, so that's it from me just now. I'm going to stop sharing. I've got 2 speakers I want to introduce you to just now. So first of all, I have online, I'll see them somewhere in the vast array of people that are now joining us online. I'll have Pierangelo Marconi, not to be confused with the Belgian chocolate maker, as someone said to me the other day, Pierangelo, that's Marcolini. I don't think anyone will be disappointed when they hear you speak. And I have Doris Letina from CEJA. So Pierangelo Marconi, I beg your pardon, misspoke, works for Roquette. And Pierangelo is going to tell us a little bit about what that means. And he is the global category manager within that organization. And here's a short presentation for us. And that'll be followed by Doris Letina. We'll give a little fuller introduction too, but Doris is is vice president at CEJA, but more importantly, she's an apple farmer in Slovenia with a little bit of organic production, not in the apple side, but in some other products, and hopefully she'll give us a little flavor of that. Not physically, we are in a virtual meeting, unfortunately, so we can't have any apples, but we'll have lots of discussion about them apples. Okay, so let's get it started. Pierangelo, would you like me to share your presentation? You happy with that? And you can just click next slide. Yep, good. I shall do so now.
Do you see my screen
You've
now?
got it. Yes, we do. We'll just get rid of that. And
yes, okay.
we can see your screen. You'll just need to click on the presentation. There we are. Lovely.
Okay. So hi, everybody, and thanks for the invitation today. I'm Pierangelo Marconi. I come from Italy, so you can hear my sound of my voice, maybe, the pronunciation. And my background is I am an agronomist with a master degree in marketing for food, agri-food industry. And I also enjoy to manage my family farm when I have time to do that when I'm in Italy. Just to answer to your question, to complete my presentation, what does it mean, global category manager for special raw materials? It means they have the head of purchasing of all special raw material processed by Roquette group worldwide. And then this is a keyword, special raw material, because it will be one of the pillars of my presentation today, just to speak about the difference existing between commodities and specialties in starch milling activities. So, but first of all, just to introduce a few words, Roquette. What is Roquette? Roquette is a global leader on plant-based ingredients. We are a processor of cereal, potatoes, and proteins plant to produce food ingredients. So our business is a B2B, it's not a B2C. So we produce ingredients that are processed by the food industry to deliver food and others, also medicals and so on, to the consumers. What we say is the leader is a leader with a clear vision in what the nature could provide us. So nature, as we say, has the direct answer to provide people with food, nutrition, and health. And our ambition is to unlock the potential of nature to offer the best in ingredients, food, nutrition, and health for the market, for the consumer. For all of us, we are consumers, so we demand food, health, and nutrition from what we eat every day. Okay, the value of a company like Roquette is authenticity, excellence, forward-looking, because we need to advance step by step to have a clear vision of the future, and well-being for all of us, but also at first for our colleagues working in our facility. Few numbers, then I finish and enter in our discussion the topics and of our presentation today. Is Roquette is a global player that is a representative and plants in more than 100 countries worldwide in the world, more than 5,000 consumers. So customers, excuse me. And the Roquette group was built to start processing potatoes in northern France, close to Lille, between Lille and Dunkirk in Letina, processing potatoes to produce starch for the local industry at that time. Today, we are roughly 9,000 people in the world of 45 nationalities. So this means that it is a world group, if you want. We are present in the main countries in the world, 25 plants where we process directly food, raw material, agricultural raw material. We are well involved in R&D, and every year with more than 300 people that are located as a workforce in Letrem, close to Lille. And we are able to deliver every year more than 40 patents protecting our final product. The turnover is roughly 3.7 billion euro per year. So what we say is that what is the mission of Roquette? The mission of Roquette is, as a main player in the food industry for ingredients, is to meet the consumer expectation for safe and sustainable food. The word safe and sustainable is becoming the main pillar, if you want, where we are focused to develop our supply chain. And in fact, if we look short in the future, in the next 30 years, we expect that worldwide the population will increase and will reach more than 9.7 billion people. That need, especially in the most developed countries, need for a specific food, not just a primary food. They need food with a very high standard in terms of quality and requirement, in terms of safety, natural, nutritional characteristic and of their compound or what they eat, and also price. So for us, our mission and goal is to enhance the sustainability growing practices, supporting farmers to implement the best growing practices to produce more and more sustainable and safe food. When I say safe food, it's because there are in all countries safety regulation and health regulation, of course, but the expectation of our customer are more and more strict compared to the regulation. For example, what is everybody knows that there is a large discussion about glyphosate. We are asked to deliver our ingredients without any residual of glyphosate, especially for the special raw materials. Then I come back on the word special in commodities later. So, for example, we are a leader in producing protein-based product to replace meat and milk derivatives. In this case, we have to face the risk of cross-contamination by pesticide. Glyphosate as the desiccant is not admitted, but also cross-contamination residual because, for example, of gluten on soybean inside on the protein of peas. So the problem of molecules and allergic product is one of the main traits, the main key point of our activities. So the demand of consumer is more and more restrictive compared to the existing regulation. And so we need to implement and support grower to implement the best growing practices to meet the expectation of the consumer. Excuse me. Now, I just enter to identify which are the main traits, the pillar of our strategy for purchasing. Starch milling industry needs of a very, very large volume of raw materials. But when we speak about commodities, we have huge quantity. And for that, what is mandatory to the respect of the regulation. So in the past year, recent year, in the future, we expect for more and more restrictive Earth regulation for food and for the environment. We are all interested, we take care of the environment, of course, and also we're taking care also of the best growing practices in order to reduce as possible the pollution of the soil and the environment. In the world, in the main countries, especially in Europe, there is a large changing in terms of policy to move to a more and more sustainable crops. And also we are asked to reduce the gas emission. So this is an important role and point to take in account, that is to implement practices to be able to reduce the gas emissions, so to work and to support the decarbonization as possible. But for us, for our industry, when we speak about sustainability, that is another point very, very important. We don't speak only about the sustainability of practices to produce our raw material, but we are involved in our process for sustainability in the process to reduce in processing aid, to reduce the energy, to reduce the consumption of energy, to reduce, optimize the use of the water in our process. Concerning also the transport, so we push and support and we develop as possible the local sourcing, and also packaging. So when we speak about sustainability, is a word if you want. There is a lot of activities. And of course, we start from the raw materials. And so we cannot ask sustainable raw material and we don't take care of sustainability all along the process in our plant till the final consumers. And so what I already said is that our consumer, our customer demand for much earlier specification requirement for the raw material, more than what is defined by the regulation. And this is something that is a critical point, is in our case, because as I already told you that we are in a B2B model, so we don't join the final consumer. All therefore the cost supported to implement the best sustainable practices that have a direct cost that are supported by growers, but also by ourselves, not every time are valorized. So it's quite impossible to take value from this effort. So this is a key point, that to produce sustainability has a cost for the growers at first. But not every time these efforts are well supported and doesn't correspond to it taking advantage in terms of price and to be and the reputation, if you want. Sometimes it's not really appreciated to the efforts that they are done and implemented all along the supply chain for the ingredients. So the answer, and it is the way of Roquette to implement and to develop a more sustainable approach for producing raw material, is to move toward the specialties. Specialties are as main product for us in our business, represented by special corn, that is waxy corn, for example, by potatoes to produce starch and protein. And last but not the least, the protein peas and other protein plant that we are processing in our plant. And these specialties give the opportunity to bring add value, because there is some characteristic that very well identify, recognize, and so our customer are ready, we can say, to simplify, to pay a premium in order to obtain the best quality and the add value from this product. So the approach for Roquette for specialties is to work together with the farmer. I used the word synergy. We can use also, French guys say, main dans la main plutôt que hand in the hands. But we need to work together to implement the best project, to work together to answer to the expectation of the final, the consumer, for our customer. Roquette started this approach in the year 70s, contracting waxy corn in Italy, then potatoes, and also potatoes in France. In this case, in potatoes in France, we have direct, we work closely with the cooperative. We propose our protocol, we propose our best growing practices. We are involved also in breeding new varieties. But since the 1998 it was, we start processing also peas in France to produce protein. And now we have a new plant, just start processing peas in Canada to produce protein, to replace is a milk and meat replacer protein. So to implement and so to work in specialties, we have to focus on 2 points that represent our basic strategy, that is a very strict traceability procedure They start from preferred varieties that is being selected by Roquette, then traceability to the field, to the farm, and all to join the final step that is our process. In this sense, in order to drive as better as possible this sourcing procedure, it is fundamental for specialties, because specialty is not possible to source on the market. You have to contract in order to be sure that you have the quantity, but also the quality that you expect and you need. Because there we speak about the purity of the varieties. We don't work corn that could be imported from Black Sea in a vessel of 60,000 tons. Yeah, we speak about of batches from farmer. Each farmer delivering 2,000 to 3,000 tons max in the biggest farmer, and with the pre-validation of the batch at the farm in order to guarantee the quality. And this is a cost. The cost in terms of support by the agronomists from Roquette, but also the best practices implemented by the farmers. And regarding sustainability, we are asking our farmer to be part of the sustainable process and certification. We are asking farmer to be part of the SIE or FSA, as you want, certification system in order to guarantee that the best sustainable practices are implemented. But this is what we are doing today, but we are also building this, maybe the vision for the future in terms of sourcing specialties, is to build, as we say, the farm of the future. That is the final scope is to promote precision farming, because what we would like to have is to enhance the digitalization of the farm in order to guarantee what is the traceability, to guarantee and to support farmers to manage as possible their production cost, because the final, if you want, goal will be the blockchain. The blockchain is not only the traceability, but is also to be able to trace and to manage as better as possible all costs, but not only the economical costs, but also to make, for example, in terms of the gas emission, to evaluate what is the impact of the practices implemented by the farmer in terms of reduction of the gas emission. So this is what we ask is, we would like it to implement working to the farmer, is to arrive to have the TCO, the total cost ownership in terms of production cost and also of energy, in terms to estimate really what is the level of sustainability of our raw material. This is the last line of my presentation, because it's a very, very short presentation where I try to put some pillar that could be the bullet point to discuss, to launch our discussion. But not the least is the remuneration to the farmer. What we already started doing in 1917 is to launch an effort for a fair trade, if you want, because we build a system, a contract, where the remuneration of the different step and the different activity implemented by the farmer in order to improve the quality of their product have the right to a premium. We quantify therefore, and so they can, the growers and the farmer, to improve their revenue. And at a point that it is fundamental for us, and the results is very, very good, is to propose a long-term agreement, if you want. And the result for us is that we have a very, very small turnover of a supplier. This means that this safe relationship based on a fair trade has attained the main goal, to work together in order to build a very safe and reliable relationship between the producer, the growers, and the industry. The next step is to obtain that all these efforts are better evaluated and remunerated by the consumer. That is not every time true. It doesn't happen so often.
Okay, thank you very much, Pierangelo. Very interesting. I'll move on, and then we'll come back for some questions to Doris Letina. As I said, she works with CEJA, but she studied economics and has a qualification in agriculture. But she's going to tell us more about that and a little bit about her work with CEJA as well, I believe, having spent a day and a half in a working party. Doris, to you.
Yes, thank you very much. Good afternoon to everyone. I will briefly share with you the view of young farmer, that there will be time for discussion. So my name is Doris. I'm living and working in a rural area in Slovenia on my family's farm, where main production are apples, as you heard before. It's conventional production. We also have plums, some arable land, meadows, forestry. So it's pretty diverse farm, which is very normal for Slovenia. And it's the farm who is facing challenges and opportunities that are given in rural areas. So as you heard before, we also have some organic production, so chestnuts and walnuts. But I think the biggest achievement of our farm is the biodiversity we find in our hearts. So that's only what matters on the end of the day. And as a farm, we are involved into different sides of value chain. And I need to say that I find very interesting the presentation for Pierangelo before. So it's very nice to hear so that such a sustainable value chain are so near and they are working. Yes, I'm Vice President of CEJA. It's European Council of Young Farmers. And CEJA is the voice of Europe's next generation of farmers to the European institutions, also other key decision makers, and we are representing around 2 million young farmers in Europe. So first of all, I want to say that agriculture should provide decent life, so place for live, developing on personal and also business level, and also providing quality spending of leisure time, and not in 2040, but today, so as soon as possible. There are three main conditions for farming, food and land-based value chain to be successful in 2040. I want to point out today. The first one is address the challenge of generational renewal. Then the second is exploit the diversity of business opportunities to answer consumers' needs and meet a society expectation. And then thirdly, adapt to and mitigate more intense and frequent risks. So if we start with the first one, so how to address the challenge of generational renewal. We young farmers await a lot from this long-term vision for rural areas on the front of generational renewal. Rural areas in many member states are subject to the population, aging dynamics, including agriculture, which for sure call for effective solutions. Just if I give you some numbers, in EU, we have less than 6% of young farmers under 35 years old, which are managing the farms. So the number is speaking by itself, and appropriate instruments are not just needed, but crucial if we want to go in 2040 as we want. So let me mention here some usual bottlenecks. Access to land. So land concentration is happening, low degree of mobility and transfer, then price of the land, urban sprawling, then everything starts and ends with money, so access to credit and investment, here lack of capital, then high risk refusal of banks. Banks are very often by young farmers. Then knowledge and education. It's knowledge, it's not always affordable, accessible, or useful for the farm. We still have lack of knowledge on existing programs, and it's very difficult if nobody to help out of the farm. Then simplification of administrative procedures, vibrant rural areas. We are still missing basic infrastructure, health, social services. Here's very huge need for further public support and investment. And it is not last, but for sure also not the least, fair income. In agriculture, there is lower income on average. We are price takers. There's also lack of inclusion in cooperatives forms. So there are a lot of challenges. But we cannot talk about challenges of rural areas and not mentioning several different instruments. Just let me mention some of them. Support to business creation and development with leverage to access finance and land. Then cooperation measures to better link generations, culture of lifelong learning, holistic approach of EU, the national and regional funds to develop rural areas in terms of infrastructure, broadband. So that are main challenges. So secondly, we said we will go to how to exploit the diversity of business opportunities to answer consumers' needs and meet society expectation. So how to draw on diversity of value chain, short food supply chains, but also all other modalities of marketing production, including producer organizations and cooperatives. We need to draw on the wide range of business possibilities in the sector, from remunerating environmental practices such as organic, also high nature value farming, then carbon sequestration, energy and reuse on farm residues, and then to tourism and cultural activities. If I just look to my own country, agrotourism is something we need to invest in, and that everything in the framework of multifunctional strategies. So what are conditions for such strategies to work is the biggest question. So firstly, acknowledge the diversity of practices at the policymaking level and ensure that we don't restrain ourselves to a single vision pathway when proposing support schemes and policy instruments. And then secondly, ensure that all value chains, including those ranging from multifunctionality or remunerating for farmers, so empower farmers to become price makers rather than price takers. So give them this empowering, which is the case for food, also not food, energy, so on all levels. And I'm sure that we are all aware about positive externalities for rural communities and society at large. So I will move to the third, to adopt and mitigate more intense and frequent risks. Risk factors exist in the farming, food and land-based value chain that cannot be ignored. One of the most significant risk factors is climate change that is happening with the multiplications of extreme climate events, which get more frequent and more intense. On the picture, you can see some pictures of the drought and hail on our farm. So if we are going through years, there was drought in 2015, then frost in 2016 and 2017, strong hail in 2018 and last year. So adaptation and mitigation, it's not just possibility, it's a necessity we need to have in vision, but also in a barn, on field, in our heart. So that's only what matters. I'm very glad that I can be here today and discuss with all of you, different stakeholders. I strongly believe that all the stakeholders need to take their responsibility and play their role, not just they, all of us, so we. I really thank you for giving me possibility to point out some of concerns of young farmers. We are facing a lot of challenges, but we also have some solution, and of course strong will to co-create agriculture and rural areas we want to live in. Not just 2040, but starting today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doris, and thank you for giving us your perspective as a young farmer individually, rather than necessarily from all young farmers. I think that's a nice way of doing it. What I'm going to do is, because time is marching on, and I am very, very keen that we start moving into the discussion phase of what we do, is unless there are any immediate questions for Pierangelo and Doris, you might get an easy time of it. I think that what we will do, and I don't see any in the chat or any raised hands. Okay, is what I want to do then is I do want this to be a working session, and I want us to get talking to each other. So what I'm going to do is ask that we introduce the 4 breakouts. Before we move into the breakouts, because I know that the studio can hear me, just to let you know that there are 4 topics. One will be linking economic initiatives, and that will be Ove Carlson, who is taking the place of Justin Casimir, thanks to some personal issues, and thank you, Ove, for doing so. We're looking at local drivers of change. That's with Gemma Estany from ARCA. We're looking at value chain transformation, Tajana Radic, and we're looking at agricultural transition with Janis Kronbergs, giving the elevator presentation in each. But we can think more broadly. So feel free to come in with your own issues, links to economic activity, generational renewal, transition. Those things should be discussed, you know, in the workshops. And my 4 facilitators, I'm one of them, will guide you on that. So let's move into those breakouts now, and you'll be allocated a little bit randomly across the 4 groups. I'll come back to questions afterwards if necessary.
See if somebody else coming.
I believe everybody's online, Kasia.
All right, perfect. Good afternoon. My name is Kasia Panfield, and welcome to the group discussion on linking economic initiatives. And let me tell a little bit more about structure of this group of the discussion. We will start with our speaker, Ove Carlson from Sweden, who will get some inspiration for the discussion. Then we will discuss 2 questions on key issues and steps, changes needed to get to 2040 in building resilience for future. Then we will finalize the discussion by finding the most important messages to be reported back at the plenary feedback session. And let me start with, I would like to introduce our speaker, Ove Carlson, who is Director for Rural Development in Norrbotten It is a county in north of Sweden. Ove has a really long experience in rural development and entrepreneurship. And also Ove used to be a member of Rubizmo project. This project, it is a Horizon 2020 project, focusing on entrepreneurship as a tool to revive rural areas. And Ove, the floor is yours, please.
Well, thank you. Just to ask you a little bit about the time frame, since we started a little bit late. But I shall try to hold, you were talking about 5 to 7 minutes.
Yes.
I shall try to hold to 5 minutes.
Perfect.
Some more. So yeah, how do we used to say in Sweden, I'm taking this on volley, which means that I was asked yesterday, but I had a full day until 10 minutes to 4, and coming into this session, and yeah, finally I'm on the right track. Anyhow, what is the most important questions that we should take on to this future vision for resilience, countryside areas and a business? And I would say that I have to explain a little bit about my background. I haven't just been working for the Swedish university. I have been working as a farm business consultant. I've been working in bank. I've been working in a advisory organization to develop various types of advisory service to challenge the future areas. And I have into this question one, I have a very specific thing that I think is important, and we have to develop those areas of knowledge on the farm or green businesses on the countryside, so they will be more diversified on the market. They have to reach more customer segments, other markets, and etc. In loads of countries, we are facing that, well, for example, in Sweden, 70 or 80% of the farmers, they produce for something that is reliable and connected to the world price market. And it also seems like it's a standard product that we are delivering. The market isn't like that. So we have to work very much heavily towards that. And we have, even if you focus on new segments and so on, everyone has to be very strong and competitive in the value chain they have from where they produce this value offer until they reach through various types of distribution to the customer. And we have to identify more types of successful farmers. And why do I say that? Well, we have a stereotype many times of farmers and countryside entrepreneurs that has an identity of being a producer. There isn't very many who has an identity of maybe be a seller. But we have to diversify as it is in other types of business, that you can go into various directions and have the identity, and you're always a successful business man or woman on the countryside. The second question is, what kind of changes do we need to do to come there? And I think we have to work very, very much more with business model development and help the entrepreneurs on the countryside to be better on that. There are loads of opportunities in all the sectors that we have been discussed in Rubizmo, and there are loads of various types of, demand from customer segments. And there could be so many ideas of reaching that. To do this, we have to improve the change of knowledge and innovation, and we have to make results from research and development work much more easier to reach those micro business, because they don't have the capacity of implement it by their own. We have to develop educators and advisors, and in many more areas than we do today, not just production. It should have to be marketing, it has to be sales, it has to be loads of things that we can develop from the markets. We have to develop not just the knowledge, which is what, we have to develop management, the skills, which is how. A lot of business, when you should convert your business into a new business model, you don't know how to do it, and you can't deploy capacity to do that in an efficient and quickly way. I say that all those businesses, they have to have a groundstone, which is sustainability, ecological, social, and economical. And those has to be targets in the business. There's no other way to fulfill the needs for sustainability. So it should be natural and clear. But we shouldn't just think about ecological. We have to take into consideration social and economic. Often we see the farm business or the countryside business, they have a profit margin of maybe 0 or a little bit less than 0, a little bit plus than 0 on average. But it has to be plus 10 or plus 20 to handle all the risks in those business. And then you have to rethink your business model, and you have to rethink what you're actually focusing when you are an entrepreneur. And this is quite simple and it isn't new, but we have to implement it in a more specific way. And if we talk about develop natural resources, developing management skills, develop countryside development and regional development, all those levels has to work together very more closely and stop to use different explanation for same things. They have to work in a visualized and more specific way to reach goals, which should be a sustainable growth. And all the markets possibilities are there. Well, I just stopped there. This is what you get from me from on volley from Sweden, if you say so. Did you understand what I said?
Of course we do. We did. Thank you very much, Ove. And really big thanks for this, because that's true that Ove was asked yesterday because to make this speech, because unfortunately our main speaker couldn't join at the last moment, but Ove kindly accepted to replace Justin, who was also from Sweden. Thank you very much. Do you have questions to Ove? No, I can see like 2 in the chat, but let me see. I know this is okay. And if there is no questions, I would like to pass to the discussion on first question is related to issues that should be addressed in a vision of the future for resilient rural areas. And we have also second question to be discussed. What are the steps, changes, or actions needed to get there? It means to 2040. If you like, I can share the screen quickly with the question, first question to visualize, just to, and yeah, it would be easier. And can you see? And what would be in base of what you have heard? So main speakers in the plenary, also what Ove has said. What is, in your opinion, the key issue that should be addressed in this vision, you know, to get to 2040 2040 to have resilient rural areas. And in the context of the main topic of our discussion, linking economic initiatives and what kind of transformation in farming, food, and land-based value chains need to make to be successful in 2040. Who would like to start?
May I start?
Of course, yes.
Thank you.
I can't say no to my colleague Laura.
Many thanks to Uwe for a very interesting intervention. What I'm wondering is, you're saying that in order to achieve resilient and sustainable rural farming businesses, they all need to specialize. But what will happen? Somebody in Europe will still have to continue producing also cereals, normal food, you know, like stock foods.
Bulk.
What you're at bulk foods. How can those people remain competitive and resilient to these changes?
Well, I believe that we also need a sort of specialist on bulk, if you say so. And they have to be tremendous good on the production process in the business. They also have to be very good leaders and coaching the staff. And also they have to be very good businessmen in those orders. What I'm saying is that even those who are bulk producer, they have to be more unique. If you compare about the car manufacturers, they are not, how do you say, everyone who is a car manufacturer, they try to be more unique than the other and not compatible and how do you say, transformable to each other. So they wouldn't have a discussion about price. I was in Canada in February and they say, oh, we don't have any chance to compete with Ukraine and Russia about the price. So we had to add value. So they have to be more unique, even those who are on the prairies, which is the main bulk producers. And so we need to have different segments of bulks. For instance, in Sweden, I would say that we have a sustainability level which is much, much higher than the world price market, the sustainability that are produced in many countries. So it should be a different brand. But nobody who is manufacturing that, not even the farmer-owned cooperatives, because they want to buy cheap grain. And then that's why it's easy to say, we pay the world price market and we can take from the Baltic cities or Northern Germany and so on. So everyone, even if you have a value chain, a production process that is, let's say, for exclusive market or for bulk market, it has to be very efficient. And those, you have to produce it as efficient you can, the value offer you're producing. But the farmers has to be more, give a more thought of what kind of value do they produce for their clients, their customer, which is the processing industry. There isn't very much discussion about, can they add more value to them? Can they have a higher price?
Okay.
I would suggest a very interesting book, and that is In the Head of Michael Porter, which is written by an editor on Harvard Business Review, which is marvelous good explanation about how shall you change your strategy, but you have to start up with to think about what kind of competitive environment you are in. Then you can decide what kind of strategy you would have.
Thank you very much. Who would like to take the floor next to just to say what kind of issues they are or should be addressed? No? Silence?
There's Tanya. Sorry, there's Tanya raising hand.
Yes, please. Because I don't see. Can you start? No. Right.
Sorry, there's Tanya Gregorieva who is writing in chat that she would like to speak.
Yes, please, Tanya. But I can see that your microphone is muted. Just please, Tanya. Yeah, we can't hear you, Tanya. No, still nothing. Maybe, maybe you can write in the chat your comment, and because we can't hear you. Please write in the chat.
Okay, does anybody else have any points there?
And yeah, maybe.
Have any more hands?
So far, no. Maybe I first on my screen I can see Karin, maybe Karin, or our speaker Pierangelo. Would you like to add something?
Yes, I was mute.
Perfect.
Just, but what I could add is that finally I agree what Ofka, maybe, yes, he told before, that if we speak about the bulk product as we call commodities, the approach is particularly is a big volume and lower price, to simplify. On top of that, what I already told is that for the main user of cereal derivatives, this means starch, sugars, proteins, and so on, because from the cracking, the process from corn, wheat, and so on, you obtain starch, derivatives, proteins, fiber, and so on. So mainly food and some pharmaceutical product. They are asking more and more for sustainability and so on, but they don't really appreciate. What they ask is to be simplified, the stamp on top. How many tons do you have? What is the percentage of the raw material you are purchasing that are sustainable?
I don't know. Oh, thank goodness.
This is what so often happens for bulk product. So to imagine to change and the approach and the procedure for a bulk product is not really very easy, because you have to work on the producing process, to involve farmer training and so on. But finally, you need, if you produce corn and wheat, you need to produce tons. What I call the exogenous factor are the regulation change in terms of import duty. You speak about Canada. I've been working 2 years in Canada to implement the supply chain to the new plant in Portage-la-Prairie, close to Winnipeg. And so there, the price till last year of the piece was very decreased. They speak about $6.5 per bushel. In 4 months, from December to January, now the price is 9.5 cents per bushel. This means they increase roughly more than 25 to 30%. Why that? Because India decided to have a strict policy in terms of import duty to facilitate, to increase the local production pulses and peas and so on. And India asked for more pulses from Canada. So the price jumped. Someone say this because of the soybeans, because we are speaking about commodities. Yes, I agree, but they are not related because are 2 different products in terms of final use and so on. So I just make this example to say that the approach to bulk is different to other, speaking about the cereals, in this case of pulses, and not specific like chickpeas or lentils, because as smaller is the market, is more easier is to catch value if you want, because you enter really in specialty approach. That could be other vegetables, something else, is another approach than bulk. But for bulk, that represents a big acreage in Europe, in US, in Brazil, in South America, everywhere. This represents the main acreage, the most important acreage. The approach is quantity and price, reduction of cost. So there is very difficult to change this approach. Apart of what was the policy for the direct support to the crop and so on, that is to rebalance what's the final revenue for the farmers. So, but what you say, that I agree with you when you're speaking about sustainability of environment, sustainability of the price as well. So to let the farm not to survey, but to have the right revenue, but is also the ecological, ethical, and social impact. That for bulk is something that is limited for me. It is not easy, really easy to change. I made the sample of specialty because pulse is something different. We are speaking about a sophisticated product, if you want, high quality product, where we propose to replace milk product and so on. So an impact in terms of sustainability, because to produce the unit of protein from peas, the gas emission is lower, the energy demand is lower than to produce meat or milk. But it's something that is really very, very specific. So the final, my point of view is that the approach is to be diversified from the bulks and the other crops. They could be more special crop with an easier approach of the customer. They could much more evaluate, remunerate the add value that is possible to provide.
Thank you very much. I can see John raising his hand. Please, John.
I'm speaking on behalf of Tanya because she can't get a voice the microphone. So she's raising the very point, picks up on some of what Pierangelo just said and what Tove was saying earlier. And I think we're having to address this balance between those imperatives at the bulk end, the large scale, and these more artisanal, more small scale, more immediate considerations. So what Tanya's asking is, in writing, she says we have to be honest when we're preparing a policy. We need to think about the transformation and planning the future, so that we've got a clear picture using data, using impact assessments and other data analysis to see what the effects of trade are, and to extend that. So that was, and ultimately she's saying, what is the EU going to do with the trade agreements? That's a major consideration. Laura, I think you had a point you were going to intervene with as well.
Yeah, thanks. Just to say, I also saw that someone else was raising a hand, but just quickly to say that in a previous workshop we had this morning on green futures, we were talking a lot about local food chains, local or regional value chains. And here, of course, we are talking very much about the global. I know that the food market is very integrated in all directions, but I would like to know the views of the participants with regards to the potential in more localized or more regionalized food value chains and food production. What kind of potential do you see there?
Yes, anybody else? You have Karin who raised a hand, and also Uwe raised a hand. And but maybe first, is there anybody who would like to answer to Laura?
Karen already has her hand.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Karen?
Okay.
Karin,
yeah,
please.
I don't really have an answer to Laura's question, but I think economic viability of farms is a really big issue at the moment. And as already has been said, advisory services play an important role for developing solutions. So a systematic approach to support farmers with advice, with new maybe ideas for producing or selling or marketing. So innovation plays a big role, but also applied research or cooperation within the value chain. And what concerns the farming sector at the moment as well are new strategies as farm to fork strategy or EU biodiversity strategy. They are all interesting and important, but maybe also costly for the farming sector. So, and it's really a big question if the consumer is willing to pay for this. And of course, the strategies are also very important for climate, for environment, and also for acceptance by society. So bringing everything together is a challenge, and I can't imagine where we are in 2040. But it's quite clear that the farming sector needs a lot of support and also communication with consumers, which play also a big role in developing solutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kai. And Ove, you wanted to add also something, some comments?
Well, when you're talking about the issues for the future, so I already said that I think developing the marketing skills and also business model development, I think that is the key for success, because a lot of knowledge has gone away from the farmers to let other parts in the value chain take part of that. They are not actually doing so much a business with the food processor. They just deliver. And if we see to the profit margin in the value chain, as close we come to the customer, as bigger is the profit margin. And in Sweden, they made the calculation that 90% of the climate footprint to the customer is affected by the farmers, but they have the lowest profit margins. In Sweden, the profit margin has been -2 after farmer's salary on the bottom end in 20 years. And so I don't know that figure worldwide, but it's a huge problem to handle that. And the only way I see is that if we continue to do technical innovation and natural resource development, still there would somebody else be capturing the value except the farmers. But shall they handle the risk in the future, the farmer has to be more skillful to capture the risk. And I don't have all the answers. If the farmer should be more skilled and more trained and more educated in marketing, there should be innovation, so much innovation to capture the value on the market. So they can be resilient.
So Uwe, are you saying that actually the farmers have to become real equal business partners also in these value chains instead of remaining as suppliers?
Yes, and also they shall try to seek shorter ways to the end customer, shorter ways to some of the processings. They should jump over the steps. I would say that the best solution in the world should have been that we can take all the parts in the value chain and deliver directly to the customer. And we can, make it special for each customer. We should have, let's say, a Spotify for food. That's an interesting vision. And you see many
this is
other
thinking
parts.
Out of the box.
Yes, yeah. But for in cars, you have mass customization. Some of the farmers can just be more business oriented and also maybe do some more of the processing. They have to capture the value. Otherwise, we will have no investments, no handling of the future climate footprint and other things like biodiversity and all that stuff. Oh, I speak too much, sorry.
No, perfect. Thank you very much. Anybody else would like to add something, something more? And I don't see Anna Novak. I can see raise a hand. Anna.
Yes. Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Hello. I would like just to add a small comment coming back to this question: how to specialize and how to make our product unique. And I would like to share my experience. I've been working for many years now with the Western Balkans, where the average farmers, practically 90% of the agricultural holdings have less than 5 hectares. So they are extremely small, relatively poor, because of course their production is very small. However, even in this situation, there are solutions. And we organize through our unit, we organize many workshops on short food supply chains, how to organize, how to do it. And there are certain examples, even in these poor countries, where farmers get together, created cooperatives, and produce products which are very specialized. For example, one of the famous examples, for example, from Serbia, is the specific ivar, which is considered as a very unique in taste. And when we talk to these farmers, which are very small, really very small, with very small land, they decided that they will be specialized only for local production. They say we don't have ambition to export it. It's not our target. We want to sell to local people because local people in this country, they can recognize this added value. So sometimes the idea is to think who are your customer and specialized in this direction with a very specific local and unique product. And additionally, just to reply one of the questions, whether a customer would be keen to pay more for more expensive product. And I think we have examples with all the GIs, geographical indications, where we know that products are more expensive, but having this geographical indication symbols, they represent certain quality. And I think that this is also one of the solutions for smaller producers that applying for one of these GI symbols, they have certain kind of guarantee that their product will be much popular and people will pay higher price for compared to other products on the market. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna. And Anna passed smoothly to the second question, in fact, about step changes and actions needed to get to 2040. And I saw also Karin, who had a hand raised, but I am not sure. Suddenly, I don't see it. Is anybody else who would like to talk to contribute about actions needed, what should be done? And John, do you have your hand? And Lauren as well.
Everybody else is back, so I'm going to go away and let them get on, because I'd like to see the second question answered. And we did hear that the best solution so far was to take the chain away completely and deliver direct, which was the extreme scenario. But I'd be interested to hear what other people have to say about visions for the future. Lawrence,
yeah.
Hi, everyone. Hi, do you hear me?
Yeah.
Since we're talking about the future of rural areas, I would like to bring young farmers at the center as all of the discussion, because they represent the next generation of EU farmers. So I'm working, my colleague is Doris Letina, you heard from her, so I don't want to go back to CEJA's and young farmers' perspective, but I still would love to hear from you. How do you think the EU can best support young farmers to meet the challenges of our time. That includes challenges in terms of sustainability and be there to find solutions to mitigate climate change, but also taking into account the concerns and obstacles young farmers are facing. They include, again, what my colleague Doris Letina mentioned: access to land, access to knowledge and training, access to credit and investment. And we really want the EU to support the next generations of EU farmers to make indeed rural areas vibrant areas to live in, and also the importance of a fair income for farmers, and it's been mentioned by a number of speakers now during this working group. It is really key. So I know we don't have much time remaining, but maybe if anyone would like to react on this, and I'd love to hear your view on the generational renewal challenge. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is somebody else who would like to answer? Karin, please.
Yes, I just wanted to add that participation is a very, very important and strong tool to talk to farmers, young farmers, but also the whole farming community, especially now when the CAP strategy planning process is ongoing. So just do a lot of participation during the programming process, but also within the networking afterwards. If you have a national network, just involve them to get better results and good measures.
Sorry,
Thank
we
you.
are running out of time. Laura, may I ask you to summarize a little bit of points just for the plenary session?
Let's see, I'm trying to differentiate here things for, yeah, I've been taking notes as crazy here.
Yeah,
so,
I was trying as well. Yeah.
So what comes through is that in the vision, we have to be able to think out of the box. I would like to mention that in the plenary, and let the value chain evolve even more towards specialty products and really
So everyone is very quickly joining us back. Thank you for using the time fruitfully. I hope you did. Ours was lively. Everyone spoke in our group. Well, everyone I could see spoke. So what we're going to do is, we're a little bit tight for time, but we gave as much time. We gave an equal amount of time for the working session. We gave exactly the time that we had forecast we would, which was one of our key ambitions. So I'm going to go round the groups. The first working group, number one, was Kasia, you were moderating. Are you providing the feedback from that?
No, it would be Laura.
Laura's providing the feedback.
Yes, who started to speak, but we were running out of time.
That's
fine. Laura, I'm going to pinpoint you and I'll ask you to give the feedback from the first group.
Thank you. Okay, so in our group, it was found that farmers need to achieve higher specialization and higher added value, whatever they are producing, be it bulk produce or specialty products. But there's a big risk in this, because currently it is very difficult for any kinds of farmers, especially small farmers, to ensure sufficient profit margin from their production, and new kinds of business models are needed to address this problem, to ensure that their production will be sustainable and resilient in the future. What will be needed maybe is to rethink totally our food value chain and go more into tailor-made delivery of products for the consumer needs. Also local markets were mentioned as a strategy for small farmers. And with regards steps towards this vision, we mentioned that what policy can deal with are issues such as access to land, credit, knowledge, that have also been mentioned as the key challenges for young farmers, for the next generation, and participation, engaging the whole farming community in policy is really fundamental. There are some good practices and tools existing, such as the geographical indications, that are very useful for providing this added value to even very small farmers and small quantities produced. And it was also mentioned that all this has to be looked at in the broader picture, taking into account, for example, EU trade agreements, trade policies, because we cannot escape the fact that the world markets are a key factor in impacting the competitiveness of our farmers. I will leave it here. Thanks.
Maybe I will add that we also mention innovation and cooperation between value chain as important approach, and strategy as important for climate change as the action to be developed. Thank you very much, Laura.
Thank you, Kasia. Thank you, Laura. Alex is going to provide the feedback from the group 2, which was looking at local drivers of change. Alex.
Yes, just a couple of remarks on where do we want to go. We spoke a lot about the farming sector, which needs to become sustainable, also for the farmers to ensure there's a quality of life and societal appreciation, and also as a sector to be whole adapted to the climate change. And as other parameters, we talked also about the administration, which needs to become brave and create enable conditions which reduce, for example, red tape or synergies within the EU funds. I'm speaking more, Dave, than before. I've become a bit more descriptive. And also in terms of concrete action on the ground, what can we do now? We talked a lot about the generational renewal as well, access to finance, land. As example, we mentioned the land banks from Italy. Interregional generational cooperation also will enable future generations to come to the sector. Education and policy support for infrastructure like equity, incubator farms. We also talked about empowering small producers to become more effective in the value chain, for example, from shared processing facilities, direct marketing, and local cooperatives, or peer-to-peer exchanges. And we also mentioned mediators, facilitators, who can facilitate the interaction both between the local level and the policy level, but also between young farmers who want to enter the sector with the older generations. And also we talked about being innovative with the tools we already are having in use. For example, the EAP operational groups. We can actually use them to support generational renewal, or also financial instruments. This is a small recap. David, back to you.
Thank you, Alex. Yeah, I think it was the expression that came up was innovate in innovation. So you can use the existing tools, including innovation tools, but be innovative with them, find different ways of breaking down those barriers. So the third group, Flavio, you were facilitating it. Are you reporting back?
Indeed, David, I am. Key points that we have discussed in terms of ideas and perhaps some changes needed or expected, hopefully by 2040. The discussions was on the value chains transformation. So also beyond the farming activity, also adding value to the farming production, to the agricultural production, and we were discussing the importance of supporting indeed the diversification of the farming activity to further support resilience and of the farmers in the future, and therefore we also touched on the importance of supporting the development of the bioeconomy and the business networks, bringing together the local actors to learn from each other how they can add value and support each other, adding value to each other's activities on a local territory. And so the importance of the work done through the hubs that indeed is expected to be of great relevance also for the future. And in that respect, I was happy also to flag the importance also of sharing the best practices, which is in part also what we do to support the sharing of ideas and the replicability of good ideas of business, possible business ideas in rural areas, also beyond the farming activities as well. And then I think very much based also on the recent emergency that we are unfortunately still going through. There was a strong focus on at least some positive aspects resulting out of that. In a way, the local markets were, and we saw that a bit reinforced, and the short chain, and it helped at least to bring closer the consumers with the local producers, and that's something that it's a wish also for the future. So reinforcing the local markets, trying to provide a place for the local markets to further develop and have their further share, let's say, of the markets compared to against stronger and bigger retailer chains, and helping farmers developing their own also brands. It's something important, and to that end, of course, also the cooperation can have a significant role to play. And final point, and that's also related to changes needed and in the conditions for the future to realize a vision, more flexibility and responsiveness in the by the legislators in adjusting to the situations, adjusting to the needs and to attempts and introducing innovations. And I should stop probably here, David.
Okay, that's fine. We'll make sure we capture all of this for everyone watching. Don't worry. So that brings me to the fourth group. And James, would you like to give us a little report back from that?
Yeah, David, thanks very much for that. So we had a good discussion in our group, and I suppose we began the discussion with Janis from BeeKing Services, who gave an excellent presentation, and I think a lot of his points kind of transferred into some of the stuff that we discussed later on. I suppose he talked about efficiency and that, and I suppose in any rural future, I suppose we need to be efficient in what we're doing, and technology can lend itself to that. And so one of the other main things that came up throughout was the importance of cooperation as well among farmers and producers, so that can really have a positive impact going forward. And it's, that we cannot, we cannot continue to work in silos. That one idea in innovation will breed further ideas, and that working together is important. One point maybe to come up as well that was a side benefit of cooperation was the social impact of working together, that agriculture can be a very isolated industry, and that can help and make it more attractive for people to move into rural areas. And I suppose one of the other main points linked to that is the need to integrate new people into agriculture. And there was a debate, I suppose, around technology and the impact that can have in terms of environmental sustainability. But a good point was also made that traditional forms of agriculture can also lend itself. The technology is not the silver bullet, that maybe in some cases traditional forms of agriculture can be really important. In terms of steps going forward, look, broadband is one that always comes up in terms of innovation and that, but if broadband is taken, that it's going to be there, we need to have the people that use it to use it. We need to have the skills, and training is needed for people to do that. So training our farmers, our rural community, is going to be very important. One other point I think that was very important was around selling ourselves as rural areas, that we need to become better to do it, if it's for tourism or if it's the products that we produce, that and then we can become price makers, that I think was mentioned throughout this workshop. So and also that we need to be more resilient, and it's not just financially and economically and environmentally resilient. We need to be resilient to crisis like the one that we've gone through at the moment. So look, there was also a big debate about environmental and economic sustainability, but there needs to be a balance, and maybe local or short supply chains can address that. One other last point, sorry, David, just because I know we're running out of time as well, is the need for business plans in agriculture. Came up that I think was a Finnish example, that they're working, to get farmers involved in developing business plans. And I think something we've spoken about before as well, there's a very small percentage of farmers that have business plans. So that would be an important training tool going forward. If there's anything I missed, please, I encourage anyone to write it into the chat so just it can be recorded.
Okay, thank you very much, James. Yes, you're right. I think we started about 3 minutes late. I think we'll aim to just finish about on time and close it about 3 minutes late. But what I would like to say is we will now go away, your facilitators, your moderators, and not to forget our keynote listener. So listening to all of this has been Laurence Castaño from CEJA, who will be taking many of these points from this workshop and one of the other workshops into the working plenary at the end of this whole week. So we're going to try and gather all that as much as possible. Thank you for taking part. Thank you for participating. I'd particularly like to thank Pierangelo and Doris for giving us our keynote presentations and getting it started, and to Gemma, to Janis, to Ovi, and to Tajana for making sure that we had a vibrant and interesting conversation within the breakout groups. Also to my facilitators, in particular to Flavio, Kasia, and James. And there's plenty of other people to thank. But that ends today's discussion. A quick reference just to say you will have all received by email now a Mentimeter code, because we're trying to build word clouds for the day. So what I encourage you to do is get onto that platform. It's usually easier if you do it via your mobile. Keep informing the discussion. Keep getting involved in all these workshops and participating. It's really important we hear your voice, get your input, and that contributes to a full and rich conclusion. Thank you all for participating. I'm going to end things there. The facilitators know that we're going to have a little catch up and try and bring those points a little bit more condensed together. But that ends day 2. Have a lovely evening, and we'll see you all again tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.